from?
I am from Florida, out in the middle of nowhere, north of Tampa, about an hour north of Tampa, Crystal River area.
I've heard of it. That's where the water's from, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
Awesome.
But yeah.
So, like, what was it like growing up in Crystal River?
There's nothing around there. It takes like 30, 45 minutes to even get to a gas station whenever I was growing up. So it was literally BFE. There was
Okay.
nothing out there. So it was go to school, come home, play with your siblings or play with your cousins because where I grew up, it was um, about 1,000 acres that was owned by my family, and it was split up against through the kids. And my parents had about 10 acres out there that I grew up on. So I literally grew up in the middle of nowhere.
Mom and dad were home?
Yeah, my mom was, and my dad worked.
Okay. And what's your background?
You're gonna get a kick out of this.
Sure.
So on my mom's side, they're very southern country family, very old school, very traditional. On my biological father's side, they're Amish. So,
Yoder.
yes.
I remember when we had that conversation the first time we all hung out. And I think we made a joke why it's so easy to be in a relationship with James because of that glorious beard that he struts, right?
Yeah.
But were you now background was Amish? Were there Amish installations in the home as far as like the way we lived? Did we respect any of that, or was any of it incorporated?
Not in my upbringing. In my upbringing, there was a lot of very traditional beliefs as far as, your family driven, your family oriented. It's the wife's job to be home, be the wife, be the mother, take care of the children, take care of the house. So I grew up having those same beliefs. My biological father, he made sure that I knew like about that side of the family. I would go up there to visit in the summer for 6 weeks and sometimes in the winter. So I did get to see how that side of my family
Which was where?
lived.
Where would you go?
Ohio,
Okay, wow. What part?
Millersburg,
Okay.
and there's actually a Netflix series about it's funny. It's the Witches of Holmesville.
Now I have to watch it.
It was cool. It was really I thought it was cool, and it opened up a lot of questions because I have a book that tells about my heritage of my family lineage, and a lot of people that were listed, the last names that were listed about the traditional Amish, the old school Amish, and New World Amish. Their names were actually in my family's lineage, so it was kind of very interesting to watch.
Well, now I have to
Very
delve there.
surprising.
What is the basis of that series then? What because it says the witches, but what was
Right.
occurring?
So the basis of it is in the Amish community. They're very strict. There's no electric. There's running water, but it's very basic.
Like, not many amenities.
No, not at all. And they didn't believe in like spiritism and what we would call as muertos being with you and bad things happening, stuff like that. They didn't believe in it. They There were women in the communities that would be those what they call brujas, and do the things to that were very what do you call
Like out of the ordinary, like
out of the ordinary
not
and
accepted, I would
not
imagine.
accepted and very with the earth and do the
Oh,
herbs and do the potions and the witch doctors
so very Wicca.
basically. Yes, very Wicca, very very Wicca. And it was shunned upon. They didn't like it in the community, and it just went through the process of what happens whenever they discover someone in the family or in the community,
What
and
did happen?
they would be shunned. They wouldn't get the proper burial in the cemeteries where the families were buried.
Wow.
They were very frowned upon. You were not allowed to speak to them. They were not allowed to dress the same way. Like
So they were scorned.
absolutely, absolutely. But it was pretty interesting to watch. But going up there in the summer and seeing my family was really nice to be able to see how they live, and it made me appreciate the amenities and the way that I was brought up with having the basic things that we take for granted every day. But
I tell you, I definitely take advantage of hot water.
yeah,
I tell you, just I look at, and it's like when you go to places like where your family's from, or in our case, when they would take us back to Cuba, And you literally have a bucket and some cold water in it and maybe a rag, and you're like, well, fend for yourself. It makes you realize, how much we really do have. God forbid, in that documentary, was there any executions that take place or anything in the witches documentary that they mentioned?
Not from the parts that I saw.
Good.
There was just one, if I remember correctly, I think where one of the women ended up like hanging themselves or something like that.
Wow.
But it was mostly about how spirits would torment people
Wow.
in that documentary, and what they would do to take care of them and to take care of ailments, and when babies would have fevers, or the very basic traditions that they would use. And it's funny because it led me to dive in a little bit deeper on my lineage and look into, what did my grandmother do? What did my great grandmother do? And I had found out that my grandmother had a few little old wives' tales things that she would have that she would do. And it explained a lot as far as things that catch my attention, what I like with crystals, with stones, with working with herbs,
Oh,
stuff like that. And come to realize my grandmother, because she's been passed for about 3 years now.
wow.
She would do a lot of that, and I never knew it.
I tell you, it's that realization, because these were things that were oppressed. You look at, said documentary, or like what we spoke about with James, like these were just things that we wouldn't talk about because either we were trying to move on from them and leave them behind, or we were trying to assimilate or go with the status quo to not be shunned. But
Exactly.
knowing that that was in your DNA, how'd that make you feel? I mean, what did it like generate, or like coax this fire of now investigation and wonder about you to find out how involved were we in these things? Did you ever talk to grandma about these things? Did you ever get a chance to really, I guess not to interrogate her, but be like, hey, what was this? Why'd you get into this? Did you ever get that opportunity?
I never got that opportunity with her. Just as I started getting into the religion, my grandmother had passed. She passed in July of 2020.
You know,
And that was right about whenever I was getting in and discovering it and educating myself on the religion and being more open to all aspects of it. But hearing things that she would do and just knowing how the Amish live their life, very simplistic, almost, I don't necessarily want to say pagan in a sense, but they work a lot with the earth and with their own plants and vegetables and their own natural resources. So to see that and to hear the different things that my family would do was really cool. And I feel like it gave me that confirmation on, oh, that makes so much more sense on why I am drawn to this, drawn to crystals or drawn to spiritism and wanting to work with the herbs that I have and knowing what the herbs are with not even really realizing how I know what they are. It kind of, I guess you could say, comes naturally through that side of my family.
it'll definitely catch somebody off guard, because when you hear Amish,
Yeah.
you would not imagine any of that. Most people's idea of Amish, I remember there was an old Tim Allen film,
Yep.
so many years ago that was entertaining. But, especially with some of the TV shows and things that came out, you begin to realize this is a whole nother culture and a whole nother way of life.
Absolutely.
And I mean, there's, I would imagine, a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of, people not understanding because they are so close knit. It reminds me of the Hasidic community in Brooklyn, just all of those concept of community. We're within ourselves. We protect each other.
Yes.
What exactly, before we delve into now you getting into more ATR based things, what is it to be Amish ultimately, for the people such as myself who really might not know?
To be Amish, I mean, it's definitely a belief system and a way of life, very similar to ATR traditions. And it's very simplistic. You work off the land, you work off the animals, the crops that you have. They make their own clothes, they wear their own head coverings. They don't. They have enough education for what they need.
Correct.
Like my father, he only went to eighth grade education.
Yeah.
So they're very creative. They're very good with their hands and building things. And I would say that they're very respectable people among their own communities. It's a very tight knit, close community, without a doubt. They are also very secretive, which I think in a way that's probably why this felt so comfortable coming into the religion and learning and developing, because that's what I've seen my family do. And it's kind of like a double edged sword too, though, because it's hard to find anything out.
Sure.
My family doesn't really talk too much about it. And with my
Sure.
grandmother being passed, it's not like I can just, ask her. But it's like I know there were little nuances that they did or that she does that people don't really, talk about. But I keep priding and poking around.
Yeah, as you begin to try to find out who you are, the past, and sometimes it takes that self examination and exploration to really get there. You end up in this spirituality ultimately because of your partner James, if I'm correct, right?
Correct.
So, I guess let's start there. How did you guys meet?
I was working at a title company,
Nice.
and he was coming in and closing on a property.
With his three-piece suit, I'm sure.
No, he was in a tank
Oh
top.
my gosh, he goes. Oh, that guy. He goes to closing a tank top. Oh man,
Well, he was like, I think he was doing the deposit at that point.
nice.
But long story short, we were both at the end of relationships that we were in, and he asked me out like at least I think it was like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, okay, finally,
Finally, right?
yeah, I'll give you a shot.
Persistence, man. Don't quit. You know.
Yeah. So we met through work essentially, and it was kind of cool because before I worked at the title company, I was working for a lender, and with him being a real estate agent, I was actually working for the mortgage company that was a preferred lender in his office, and I worked there for a little over a year, and I would be in the office and different locations of the offices almost every day,
Yeah.
and I never ran into him.
Wow.
I never saw him. But then at the title company, we met, and it was kind of history from there.
Divine time. How'd that first date go?
It was like 21 questions. I grilled the crap out of him, asking him, anything and everything I could think of. And I think on the second date, maybe the third date, I had asked him about his bracelet.
Oh, if he was wearing it. Nice.
Yeah, he had it. He had it on, and I was like, what does your bracelet mean? What is it for?" And it was kind of it's like I already knew subconsciously because from what I heard, like in past experiences he would tell somebody what it is, and they would just like freak out,
Yeah.
because of the persona, I guess you could say, that the negativity brings to the religion, unfortunately.
Yeah, the stigma.
The stigma, thank you. But he told me what it was, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
I'm sure he was taken aback. I mean, we
Oh,
usually
yeah.
he probably expected, the free bread, it gets thrown, I never want to see you again.
Drink
She
in his
walks
face.
out, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure that was very refreshing. I tell you, me and Erica had a little bit of a different dynamic because we met both practicing. So,
Oh, okay.
I didn't have to go through that. So my regards to James for having the courage, because I tell you, it takes a lot of attempts to get to a point where you're accepted. So now that you find out, was he a 𝗲𝗏𝗍 already when you guys started?
Yeah, he was a Babalao already. I at that point I didn't know anything of what it was, and it's funny because it started. It was on December, I believe it was December 4th. It was 𝗀𝗲𝗄𝗏's Day.
Wow.
I was over, and it was like the last rain of the season that we were supposed to have, and we're laying in bed and watching a movie or something, and it starts raining. He's like, I gotta go get some rainwater. I'll be right back. I was like, okay. Like, go do whatever you do. And he's out there, and I guess he cleans himself or something, and he comes in, and he's like, you gotta come out here and, like, clean yourself in the
Yeah,
rain.
do the rain dance
I
with
was
me.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I get up and I go out there. He's like, look, I don't know what you've been, needing or been asking for or hoping comes through. He's like, but they're telling me for you to, clean yourself in the rain, take the water and wipe it down, and just talk to 𝗀𝗲𝗏. He explained to me who 𝗀𝗲𝗏 was, and talk to him and tell him, whatever it is that you had been wanting or trying to do, and he's going to make it happen for you. So I was like, okay. And it was really out of character for me because I'm a very inquisitive person. I got to know where, I got to know when, I got to know why, like everything. But whenever it came to this, it was just so natural in a sense. But it was pretty crazy because I did it, and I had actually been just laid off from the title company.
Wow.
The week of Thanksgiving, the
Good
week
God.
before, yeah. And I had been trying to get on at a bank for a little while, so much that my recruiter knew me by name. And I had been hoping for that job because I really needed a job at that time. I had like nothing. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. I didn't have any way of doing anything at that point. And it was probably, I don't know, a couple days later, like 6 days later or something like that. A couple days later, I got a call for an interview, And it wasn't like a normal interview that I was going to go on because it wasn't just me and the branch manager. It was me with like 12 to 15 other
The
people.
board. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then there's like 3 managers
Oh
that are
wow.
interviewing for a few different positions. And at this point, I'm like, forget it. I'm not going to get it. Like, there's no way. Um, and sure enough, I got the position. It was at the location that I was wanting, but I got the position. And I couldn't believe it. And I called him. I was like, I don't know what the heck you did.
Do it again.
But yeah,
Make it
I was
rain.
like, I want to know more. What's going on?
Yeah.
But yeah, I got the position, and it was. I told him I was like, I want to know more about it because, for me, I grew up Southern Baptist,
And what exactly is that?
very Christian. They're very reserved. The New Testament and the Old Testament of the King James Bible is what we would read out of. Growing up all the way up until middle school, we would go to church every Sunday morning, every Sunday night.
Okay.
We would be on Wednesdays, Saturdays if there's any events. We would be participating in. My dad was even a deacon at the church.
Very involved then.
So
Very time consuming.
yes. I mean, there was Tuesdays where they would go out and try to recruit new members.
It's 4 days out of the week. Good Lord.
Dude, my parents were very involved with the church. And we had relocated closer to where my dad lives now. And I think my parents fell out of faith a little bit with just a few things that they had gone through.
Sure.
And I was in middle school by this time, and I still, like, there's got to be something out there. Like, I still wanted to continue to go to church. But little by little, as I grew up and started seeing things and noticing things, I'm like, this doesn't seem right. There's got to be more to it.
Doesn't add up.
Yeah. 1 and 1 isn't equaling 2 for me. So that's when I started just kind of like, I guess, falling back on my beliefs. I always believed in a higher power, but I wasn't into the whole church thing anymore. But so I think I definitely was led to the right person and the right religious beliefs now at this point in my life.
It's really incredible because you see so many people now gravitating towards the African traditional or anything earth-based, ancestor-based, because I think it's a little beyond the context of we focus on this one person and give them all this adulation as opposed to earth, something we all come from, something we all need, ancestors, people we all have. The interesting thing that you mentioned about, the rainwater and whatnot is that's really the manifestation of Olokun on earth. Everybody says the ocean, the ocean, the ocean, but where does that water come from ultimately?
Yeah.
What were some of the things you started seeing as you started delving more, as you're studying and you had the opportunity to have a trustworthy partner who had a position within this? I mean, who was grabbing your attention? Did Olokun ever even grab your attention in the beginning before you went through your hand of Ifa process?
Not really. Actually, I had started reading up on the Orishas because I asked him, like, what can I learn? What can I read? Stuff like that. And he told me I could learn all I wanted to about the Orishas. So I would learn about Ochun, 𝗀𝗻𝗋, 𝗀𝗻𝗋, 𝗀𝗀𝗄, all of them. And I was kind of torn between 𝗀𝗻𝗋 and Ochun. 𝗀𝗻𝗋, of course, being very motherly, and from what it seems like every female wants to be a child of Ochun.
Oh yeah, everybody wants to be part of the yellow team,
Yeah.
right? Every man wants to be a son of 𝗀𝗄. It's stereotypical for sure.
But I was drawn to both of them, and then whenever I had my guardian angel pulled, it came out Olokun, and I had briefly, read up on Olokun a bit, and I was intrigued by it because there's not a whole lot of information out there.
No.
Unfortunately, but yeah, it ended up being Olokun.
How many times did they ask before they got there? Because usually that he's on nobody's radar.
Oh no, it was. We went through just about everyone. 𝗀𝗻𝗋, 𝗀𝗄, 𝗀𝗋, almost everyone. We did not ask for Ochun.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That was he did not want to ask for Ochun. And then so we asked ultimately. Lastly, it was for Olokun.
So now that you're a newly revealed child of Olokun, what's going through your mind now? Especially with the reaction that you're probably getting from the 𝗀𝗋𝗋s and everybody there, because I'm pretty sure you're the only child of Olokun that was revealed that day.
Oh yeah.
Usually never fails. So what's going through your mind now during your ceremony and now afterwards with like what's next?
So I had my guardian angel pulled prior to receiving my 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏.
Nice.
So it was kind of cool. I had, a little bit more information than what most people at that point would have.
Yeah.
Once I found out, of course, I came with the 21 questions and annoying the crap out of him, I'm sure, with
Yeah.
every time I wanted
That's
to
his
know
job. He's
something.
got to teach something, you know what I'm saying?
And
So
yes,
there's no better person to invest in than your partner and ultimately yourself. So, as you're studying about Olokun now, what confirmations are you getting about yourself? What motivations are coming?
yeah, it makes a lot of sense on some of my characteristics on how I am. Just being, I'm a Pisces, so
Yeah, the
it
fish.
it goes super hand in hand with being a Pisces to me, in my personal opinion. Whenever I started researching Olokun, right off, it was a masculine energy for me. I didn't see a female, energy. I don't. It may be because I started this journey with Ifa versus with Santeria
Sure.
and with the Orishas. But right away, it was always a masculine energy.
Yeah.
So it was really enlightening for me, without a doubt.
Well, especially someone being in your position, really an industry that's male dominated, and you being able to function within mortgage and all these different things. It's not that the independent woman has to become masculine, but you definitely have to know how to hold your own.
Absolutely.
Have to have that character to be respected, and be able to accomplish those goals. So it makes perfect sense. And Olokun was a very paternal energy. Even though he's seen as androgynous in the new world, he's ultimately a masculine energy. Um, as you're getting closer now, because by the time this video is released, you'll have much less hair. And as you're getting closer to doing the monumental feat of being, I can't even think of anyone else that's going to be able to say this, but having crowned Olokun direct. What's going through your mind?
So I'm excited. I feel like the nervousness is setting in a bit now, but I'm super excited to be able to open that gateway is what I feel,
The
because
pioneer, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Having all the knowledge that we have, because James has spent a good,
Years. I've had that. I remember the
yeah,
first time we touched that topic was actually, I remember the first time me and James actually spoke over the phone, he brought it up.
yep,
And I'm sure he remembers my response. And I said, green light, brother.
yeah. And I love it because it can be done,
Of
and it
course.
has been done. And now that we have that ability to get that information for it to be done, to me, why not? Whenever you go through the process of asking, is, oh yeah, the Orisha goes on my head, is Chango, does Yemeya go on my head? And Yemeya says no.
And what's the point of asking at all if you're not going to respect that answer?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to give my father, my guardian angel, his place where he needs to be, and I feel like if it wasn't supposed to be that way, we would not have the tools and the ability to do it.
Well, put it this way. I remember I had a hand of Ifa where a young lady came with the 𝘃𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗃, which is actually where the transformations of Olokun first manifested. And I recall one of the younger Babalaos that was there, he wanted to immediately ask for Olokun. And Lord knows I wanted to ask, simply because, it's just such a preemptive deity there. But I remember I spoke with the young brother and I said, in our tradition, at least the way things are now, which to be frank with you, I've never been a fan of, they're going to end up crowning her Yemaya anyway. When you don't have the resources or the professionals who are willing and able to go through that process with you, you don't want to put the godchild in a situation that's adverse. We ended up asking for Yemaya and it said yes. So, but I do have godchildren that are children of Olokun, who I've had that very frank conversation where I'm saying, hey, if you were my daughter, my mother, my brother, my father, and you're a child of Olokun, I want you to crown direct. Even if I got to lose you and you got to go to Africa to do it.
We were prepared to do
Yeah, I
that
know. I
if
remember
we
I spoke
needed
to
to.
James and you guys were ready to go. So I remember the various conversations we've had and me with other brother 𝗃𝗍𝗃. And, it's just really refreshing, especially somebody that isn't from this culture per se.
Yeah.
Someone that has adopted this culture to the max because, as a practitioner being by James's side, you fulfill all of those duties. Um, who better? Especially as we're going into this new age and renaissance period of Ifa. You're going to have naysayers.
Absolutely.
What do you have to say to them?
So for the naysayers out there, I feel like it's, with all due respect, ignorance. I feel like they believe anything and everything that they see online and on YouTube, and think that's how it is,
Yeah.
when it's really not. You know, if you look at the Bible, right? That's what I grew up on.
You start, I'm sure, 4 times a week. I mean, you were reading it
How,
probably more. Yeah.
yeah, how many times does it mention in the Bible where blood is shed for sacrifice?
Yeah.
Where their best animal, their best sheep, their best lamb is sacrificed. Even the boys of families are. And it even goes in I know it's in Acts, and I know it's in, there's one other Bible verse where it even talks about divination.
Wow. I didn't know
So,
that.
yeah, I was actually reading it on the way up here. I came across it. So, if it's in the Bible, but today's Christians, New Age Christians, don't practice those same things that are in the book that their whole belief system is based off of.
Yeah.
To me, I find that there's something wrong with
A little
that.
disingenuous. It doesn't make much
Absolutely.
sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, I feel like until you have a true understanding of what the religion is, and just like they don't do things today that they did in the Bible and the New Testament, and, you know, whenever Jesus walked the earth, all
Sure.
of that aspect, we don't do the same things that they did centuries ago in
Sure.
Africa.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that this religion is right. It doesn't mean that this religion is wrong. Everybody has their own belief, but there's so much of this religion that makes sense. And I see it in my everyday life. I mean, I truly believe that God, 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁, He put James in my path to bring me to this religion for things that were going to come up in my life. And I will truly, wholeheartedly say, if I did not have this belief system, if I did not have my faith that I have now, there's no way I would have been able to make it through it. Not at all.
I tell you, and laid off Thanksgiving week. I mean, good Lord, when you go through experiences like that
Yeah.
or not knowing what tomorrow holds, it's
Mm-hmm.
those faith building moments that make Ifa so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't gone through the hardship, and I'm not saying that people have to go through these uberly extreme situations, but any type of hardship, any type of adversity, if none of that was there, how do you know it's real?
Absolutely.
Until you see the results and you look at somebody, even such as myself, that has literally spent their whole life just dedicated to this book. If it didn't provide those results, I probably would not be here. Just because the human mind
Yep.
is ungrateful, right? And
Yeah.
we need to see to believe, like St. Thomas. And, it's brought us to this place. You've gone through quite a few spiritual processes already, even before you take these huge steps, jumping into the clan of Olokun. If I recall correctly, you're also initiated in Mayombe.
Yes. BTT Congo.
Nice. What was that like?
It was amazing. It really was. And in a way, I guess, so being a gringa,
Yeah,
coming
sure.
into a very
Yeah.
Latino-driven culture
Yeah.
now, even though it derived from Africa,
Yeah,
it's a very,
African-based.
yes, and then it coming over to Cuba, I was the only white girl in my ceremony, and so it was very enlightening. I feel like it definitely opened me up more, spiritually, and it made me realize a lot of the things I've experienced in my adulthood in these past 5 years or so were things that were happening to me as a kid, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to process it. You kind of learn to shut it off, per se.
Yeah, that muscle.
Yeah, but it was a beautiful ceremony. It felt great to be able to align myself with my ancestors that are with me and my spirit guides that are with me. And I with Palo, I think it's a very beautiful religion. Again, you have both sides to every religion where it can
course.
be good or bad, but I think it's a very beautiful religion, and I think it's a really good way to align yourself correctly so you can elevate and open up more spiritually.
Yeah, and that's going to be big with you being a daughter of Olokun, and then knowing your sign of hand of Ifa, where the Leopard Society first manifested. It's such a great step for you because that has to do with all that, whether it's the marking, the cutting, etc. Now, you mentioned some experiences you had as a kid. What were some of the phenomenon or symptoms you were showing that are now leading to the confirmation of you being a medium? What were some of the things you were seeing when you were younger?
So we lived in the middle of nowhere,
There's
right?
a lot of spirituality out there, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I hated going outside at night because
Wow.
I could just, it's like, I never, in that moment of being in middle school, I never, it was late middle school, probably about eighth grade, going into high school, around 13, 14 years old, that it's like I would step outside in the evenings and you could just feel somebody on you.
Were there any like Native American like was that area known for that, or was there any like history there that you guys were aware of, or
Not
was
that
it
I
just
was
that the
aware
earth
of.
trembled with just
Yeah, it's not that I was aware of. But I know that property where I grew up, it was in our family for generations.
so it saw a lot.
Yeah, it saw a lot, absolutely. But I would see things, I would hear things. But now I realize what they are. And there's one instance that just sticks out in my head. I was a little kid, I was in middle school, I remember, and I was sleeping, and I woke up and turned over, and I see this person crouched down, sitting at the end of my bed. Like, it was dark, but you could totally make out what the silhouette was. And it freaked me out. I was totally freaked out. I didn't know what to think of it. And I just kind of like threw the covers over my head and turned over and was like, I didn't see that. I don't know what that is. That wasn't there. But now, understanding spirituality and understanding the whole aspect of mediumship and everything that goes into that, I realized what it was. Whenever I was probably about 14 or 15, I would have what I would call episodes where I would just pass out.
Wow.
My chest would get really heavy. I would get, like, my ears would ring. I would kind of start getting a little shaky, and I would just hit the floor. A lot of times nobody was around.
Oh Lord.
I didn't know what was going on, or I would be like in my bedroom, it would happen. And then I would go tell my mom. My mom would take me to the emergency room. They would never find anything.
Yeah, to the
They
untrained spiritual eye. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then growing as I grew up into my young adulthood, I had been to cardiologist after cardiologist, neurologist after neurologist.
Scary.
Yeah, when I first moved out of my parents' house and had my place of my own, I remember I was in my kitchen and it had happened. And I would experience these, like, out of body experiences where I would see myself almost sitting there, like, shaking.
So you like astral project.
Yeah, yeah, and it was really, I'm like, something is not right. There is something there's something going on. You kind of start getting to the point whenever the doctors can't find anything and you don't know that it could potentially be religious or spiritual.
Yeah.
You just try to shut it off and stop it.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I could stop it, where I could, keep it from happening. And then whenever James and I got together, it started happening again.
Oh wow.
And it's been getting stronger and stronger, and definitely after my reimiento, my palo ceremony, it intensified even more. So it definitely gave me that insight of my spirituality's been with me since I
You're
was a
born.
kid. Yeah,
Yeah.
since you're born. Everybody's born with it. It's the ability to channel it and know what it is and work it and be able to help yourself elevate and grow.
Yeah, I'd say symptoms like that, at least, to people who know what to recognize immediately, that's so prototypical of the need for that alignment, right? Because when it's to the point where you're getting so spiritually overstimulated, or your spirits are becoming so frustrated with you as far as trying to align and they're unable to, you just have it's like a computer. If you click on too
Yep.
many icons at once,
It
it just
freezes.
shuts down.
Yeah.
So knowing your guardian Orisha, it makes perfect sense, because I really feel like there is no more spiritual Orisha than Olokun.
Right.
You look at 𝗀𝗏𝗋, you look at, 𝗏𝗏𝗋𝗃, you look at all the ones that have to do with the dead. Life and death originated in the ocean.
Absolutely.
So that makes perfect sense, and why mediumship and all those things are going to come very naturally to you, even if it might not assimilate initially, because it's so much up front. It's only so much a body can take. What was it like in your first misa?
My first misa was actually with one of Sophia's for her.
Oh, when she was about to
Yeah,
go,
for her
when she was
crowning.
going through her crowning.
And a lot of things hit home, and I think, again, I feel like things just was the belief for me was already there.
Sure.
So it just solidified everything for me. Different things came out. My grandfather was there. They described him to a T. It was a really great experience. I couldn't say that I've really had too much of a bad experience with anything. Thankfully, that's because I have James.
Sure.
Unfortunately, being his wife and being around, I do hear so many of the the stories of people
Horror
having
stories, yeah.
having difficulties. And I'm thankful that I've had somebody who can guide me and show me and make sure I'm with the right people to make sure, you know, everything is done correctly. Even more so because with my 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 being Osaroso,
Yeah.
that's where 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗏 used to be the determiner of the heads.
He's a very bad boy.
Exactly. So that's whenever Orula took it away from him and said, no, we're not having any more, you know, children of 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗏, because the other Orishas were like, hey, not everybody's a kid of 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗏. What about us?
We gotta
want
eat, yeah.
Exactly. So even more important to research and know what we're doing for myself, being a kid of Olokun, that it's got to be correct.
Oh yeah, because that's what people were taking advantage of there, because they wanted to give somebody else another Orisha, and because of it, the results were catastrophic. You speak about you going through some of your first experiences with James's daughter, ultimately your daughter. How's that relationship? How gratifying was it seeing that young lady hold it down and go through such adulting at such a young age, and accomplishing that goal as a family?
She is an old soul.
Yeah.
That kid holds her own. She's a spitting image and almost an exact replica of her father. So there's not anything I don't think that kid could go through and not be able to handle, but it's very inspiring. And again, like kind of how he had mentioned, knowing her 𝗃𝗶𝗏𝗏, I think it's only helped me as that parental figure in the home, to be able to have that bond, to become closer with her, because I understand her even more. And it was a really great experience being able to go through everything as a family.
No, definitely. And you look at Olokun, everybody likes to say 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗏 is everybody's father, right? But when you really look at Earth, 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗏 is up there in the mountain. We don't see him every day, so maybe he is the father, right? But when we look at Olokun, it's every day. We have to interact with the ocean every day. We have to appease the ocean every day. And we receive this sustenance and ultimately the root of life from him. I tell you, you're on track to really accomplish something monumental. Aside from the Olokun thing, what's next for Susan? As now you achieving this rank of Olorisha in the most epic of ways, where are we going from here? What are some of your goals?
Being able to achieve something so big, I really hope, and I want to drive to be able to spread that awareness, honestly, to other children of Olokun, or just to the community, to know like this is something that is legit, that is out there, and it's just as predominant as Ochun or any of the other Orishas that are there, and be that open door that anybody has questions or educate, be there for people and be able to pay it forward, because this religion and Ifa has made such a change in my life, and it's made me a better person. It's made me a better wife. It's made me a better parent. And I want to be able to pay that forward. So in any way that I can, that's what I do, and that's what I want to continue to do.
Really commendable. I think our ancestors are going to be very content as you move forward with your steps. We're rooting for you. And apart from that, we appreciate you allowing us to be the platform to have kind of that conversation before going through it, and possibly a follow-up, the day after, to be able to kind of see how everything went, or, follow up with you, see how everything's going. And we expect nothing but that which is positive. So we sincerely appreciate you.
Absolutely.
We wish you the best.
Thank
and
you.
Now it's time to put on our headphones for the elevator music, because Phil, he has everybody. He's not playing around with these shout outs.
Well, you have such a following. We got to show some love for people who show love to you, man.
Put on that elevator music.
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. All right, guys. We're going to give a shout out to the VIP members and the super fans.
Yes.
For today's episode. So giving a shout out to VIP Franklin Hampton.
Frank, thank you.
We got a upgraded VIP to Reppin' Sets.
Reppin'
Sets.
Yes.
All right.
Reppin'
We
hard.
got VIP member Nadia VA.
Nice, Nadia. Thank you.
All right. We got another upgraded member. This is Julie Q.
Julie, thank you. Upgrade.
And let's not forget the VIP 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗏.
Oh, L, what's up?
All right. We got some super fans here. We got 𝗃𝗶𝗃𝗏 Williams.
Makai.
Giselle Otano.
Thank you, Giselle.
And Min Eileen Sophia.
Oh, yes. Thank you to everyone.
sir.
And
So
until
that
next
is-
time, guys, see the light.
See ya. Bye.